What's up, party people? After a long delay, I want to welcome everybody to the first episode of Just Three with Joe. Of course, I'm your host, Joe Cardoso, owner and founder of Nuts and Bolts Sports. Super excited to have this show finally launch. What's it going to be about? It's going to be me talking about sports, joined by a guest each and every week. Before you get settled in, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any episodes of Just Three with Joe or any of the other fantastic programs we have on the Nuts and Bolts Sports YouTube channel. I got a great guest lined up for us today. We're going to have Warren Shaw, host of the NBA Baseline NBA podcast, joining me today as well. But first, I want to kick things off with talking about some topics that have got my attention in the world of sports. The first thing I want to talk about is fans' interaction with athletes. We've all seen it. We had an incident last night with a fan in Boston, or I don't even know if you can use the word fan. I'm going to say a dummy in Boston, throwing a water bottle at Kyrie Irving, almost hit him in the head. We saw Russell Westbrook get injured in the Washington Wizards series against the Philadelphia 76ers. He's leaving the court. Another dummy decides to try to pour popcorn on top of Russell Westbrook's head. The New York Knicks, who are in the playoffs for the first time in like 50 years, it feels like, had a dummy spit on Trae Young. Of course, we think about a couple of seasons ago, we had all the issues with the Utah Jazz and their fans and their beef they had with Russell Westbrook. Just fans not being fans of being dummies. And it just needs to stop. I understand we've all been cooped up in the house because of the pandemic, and now that people got vaccines, we're a hashtag, we outside, and people are just wilding out. And when it comes to sports, buying a ticket does not give you the green light to be a dummy and to do whatever you want to do and say whatever you want to say to these athletes. Yes, you paid to get in, but that does not give you free reign to be stupid. Fans need to calm down, rein it in, or you're going to end up having a situation almost like hockey, where I know they do it for safety, but can you imagine going to a basketball game and having plexiglass around the court because 2 or 3 bad apples ruined it for all of us? You lose that interaction of guys getting a dunk and high-fiving fans, or even be able to talk to fans. Remember that Charlotte Hornets playoff series a couple of years ago where Dwayne Wade was going back and forth with the fan? You don't have those kind of moments because of these dummies. So fans need to get themselves in check, and I applaud the teams for lifetime bans, getting rid of these guys. I saw that person, the dummy from Boston, was arrested, charged with aggravated assault, I believe it was, with the water bottle, and also assaulting a police officer or resisting arrest. Whatever the correct charges are, he was charged. And hopefully those things will be a green light to other dummies to not be dummy to when you come to games. Yes, you paid for a ticket, and yes, you use your hard-earned money to go see your favorite star, but that doesn't give you free reign to treat them however you think you want to be treated. You think you want to treat them, and you're also ruining it for other fans. So I hope that's something that just stops. It's getting out of control. Let's just nip it in the bud before, like I said, we have plexiglasses all around arenas and all our sporting events. Second topic I want to talk about is Major League Baseball. The season's in full swing. Some great things are going on in MLB. I just want to talk to MLB directly. There are so many good young stars in Major League Baseball. They need to do a better job of showcasing them. The days of saying the Yankees are taking on the Red Sox and you can just slap on that Yankee logo and slap on that Red Sox logo and people are going to tune in are over. You've got to put out the faces of the stars. Be more involved on social media. I see that part happening for MLB. I see a lot more activity on Twitter, Instagram. They have some great people working for them, which is great. I applaud them for that change and for that improvement. But there's so many superstars in Major League Baseball that we want to see them. We want to see Fernando Tatis Jr. I'm sorry if it makes old, wrinkly white men uncomfortable that the stars of their league are all Latino now, but it is what it is. Face the facts, man. Learn the language on the field and off the field and promote those players. Make baseball exciting again. Unless you grew up being a baseball fan, which is a lot of people still are, it's very hard to get into baseball without seeing a player. Think about all the people that watch the NBA now because of LeBron James or because of Kobe Bryant and all those iconic moments they have from those two superstars. And that's just 2 of many stars in the NBA. MLB is really, really missing the boat with this. So I hope that's something they can improve on and get better with. those are kind of my opening rants and my opening salvo. Like I said, you are watching Just Three with Joe. Make sure you subscribe to the Nuts and Bolts Sports YouTube channel. This show is going to be a lot of fun. It's the debut episode. I want to thank you for clicking play, and let's get on with it and get to my interview with the one and only Mr. Excited to have the debut episode of Just Three with Joe. And of course, I couldn't start off by myself. I had to have a guest. And of course, this is a person that I've known for about, 4 or 5 years now. You might have heard his voice on the airwaves as host of the NBA Baseline NBA podcast. He also has a couple of other outside adventures and things he's doing as well. He's always on the go. Definitely one of my guys when it comes to entrepreneurs, self-starter, a person I can go to with advice, and a person who definitely has his pulse on all things NBA. I want to welcome now to Just Three with Joe, and I want to introduce you to Mr. Warren Shaw.
My guy, Joe. First of all, congratulations to you launching this. It's been a long time coming. You need your own singular thing. Like, you know what I mean? You're the kind of entrepreneur, and I definitely follow you and your success and your team's success and all the things you do too. So I'm, as again, super excited to be here with you, launching this thing off. But we needed to hear your voice singularly, doing your own thing. So this is a great platform to begin with, bro.
Hey, much appreciated, man. Much appreciated. Well, let's just hop right into it, man. Of course, right now, NBA playoffs are off and running. We already have some teams that have already been eliminated. I guess my first question for you is going to be, what's been your biggest surprise to you so far in this NBA playoffs?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a ton of them, I think, and I'll just run through, some of them. I think John, Trey, just seeing those young guys and what they're able to do in the playoffs, I think that's been pretty cool and pretty exciting, even for the future of the NBA and the league. I think I'm gonna go with the Lakers. The Heat being swept, it's a bit of a surprise, I think, in some degrees. I always thought Milwaukee's gonna win that series, but them being swept was interesting. But I think the Lakers and their vulnerability. Everyone more or less just like, it's like, all right, LeBron and AD, they'll be fine. And granted, they're not healthy. So that is the biggest, misnomer in the room or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, they look vulnerable. And I think that gives teams hope. And we talked about it on the baseline. It's like, well, in the West, a lot of teams ended up going for it. Denver specifically, when they still had Jamal and grabbing Aaron Gordon, it was a move. It was like, F it. We see it. We see there's a chance that there's an opportunity. But as someone who covers the league, I was like, that's great that the West didn't give up in that way. But the Lakers still got it. I was like, that's cool. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's cool. Hey, do what you need to do. But they still got it, and it's crazy. Like, I don't know that. I don't have supreme confidence that they're going to get out of this series. Number one, and if they do, I don't think they're the hands-on favorite. You still want to bet on LeBron, no doubt. But I think their vulnerability is the biggest surprise to me, and it's just like it's a little bit awe-inspiring in some ways too, because especially to see a guy like Chris Paul and Devin Booker. Like, all right, hey, they could have folded, in the last game that they played in Game 4, but they found a way to get it done. AD goes down, say what you want, and I think their vulnerability is the biggest thing. What about you, man?
I say for me, it's just how much I knew they were an improved team, but I don't think I realized how much improved the Milwaukee Bucks are. The addition of Drew Holiday, you add a PJ Tucker in there. I mean, I know that Miami's not the same Miami Heat they were in the bubble, but still, it's the Miami Heat. And you have a certain level of expectation when it comes to Miami. And to me, it just seems like Milwaukee was on cruise control the whole time, just focused, locked in. And I think that if anybody in the East, I know a lot of people keep on thinking it's going to be the 76ers, but if anybody in the East can give the Brooklyn Nets juggernaut a real push, from what I've seen so far, I'd say the Milwaukee Bucks might be it, man.
Yeah, so I mean, it's funny, like we're tracking it from maybe different ways like that. I was like, the Heat getting swept. It's kind of one of my surprises. And you're talking like, well, Milwaukee being as good enough to sweep is pretty good too. And they made all the adjustments they needed to do throughout the course of the regular season. We talk about that so much. Like Bud made it uncomfortable for Milwaukee throughout the course of the regular season. Giannis, I was kind of telling this joke. I had Giannis on my fantasy team. So when his numbers weren't what they were to begin the year, I was like, what the heck is going on here? But it was because they were trying a new system and putting him in different positions to be successful. Obviously, integrating Drew Holiday and things of that nature as well, too. Bryn Forbes has been great for them coming off the bench. And now, I guess, subsequently starting with DiVincenzo going out. So, yeah, I agree with that as well, too, that Milwaukee looking as dominant, as comfortable as they have in that first round is a great surprise too. Good call.
Yeah, nah, for sure. And then, of course, I also want to get your opinion on New York Knicks. Now, I'm of a school of, hey, man, I thought they shouldn't even be in the playoffs. So for them to be in the playoffs, and yeah, I know Atlanta beat the brakes off them the last 2 games, and Trae Young has been magnificent. But if I'm a Knicks fan, I mean, we made the playoffs. We weren't even supposed to make it. It's added on experience for guys like RJ Barrett, who I think improved a lot in year 2. A guy like Obi Toppin. And I think from what I've seen, I've watched every game, Julius Randle just seems to be pressing too much. I don't want to say the moment's too big. I think maybe Julius Randle's expectations of himself are too big. He just seems to be forcing it every game. And when he finally gets into a groove and kind of allows the game to come to him, his team's down by 10, his team down by 12. And then Derrick Rose just giving us splashes of 2011 at 2 or 3 times a game is just icing on the cake. But I just feel like Knicks fans are too hard on themselves, man.
Yeah, I mean they're a crucified fan base, unfortunately. It's been rough, but I agree there because they definitely accelerated expectations now, and I think that's the one caveat to all of this that I'm a little bit scared for them for. This level of success in a weird year with the NBA, the pandemic, blah blah blah, all that 72 games, playing tournaments. It's now, have you set yourself up now for failure maybe down the road? Because I'll be honest, I like this team. I think they are physical. They play great defense. I still don't believe they're 4th in the East good, but that's what the record showed. So I'm not trying to take it away from them, but now it's like, all right, well, you did this. Now can you do it again? And if they were to step back next year, I necessarily wouldn't be surprised. But as you alluded to, that fan base would be pissed.
Oh,
and they'd
gosh,
be like, what the hell, and so forth and so forth and so forth. So it'll be an interesting offseason whenever that starts. To figure out how the Knicks have now placed themselves in the eyes of other players and free agents and things of that nature. Because do they find a way to get better as a result of that as well too? Somebody tweeted me this, and I was like, it's kind of like you always kind of preach doom and gloom with the Knicks, right? But I was like, well, if they somehow lose this series to Atlanta and don't look good, and Randall continues to struggle, what ends up happening? And being most improved player, do they kind of screw the pooch on his contract? It's like, well, you didn't do that good in the playoffs and so forth and so forth. And then you kind of piss him off, and he's like, you know what? F this. I gave my heart to New York the year I had. You know what I mean? I can see a lot of things cascading and going down the wrong path, if things are mishandled. But hopefully they have competent leadership in place now, and I think they do. And I think all parties will kind of come to agreement. And Randall, if he's worth his salt, he'll understand too that he put the work in. And again, you always give players credit first. But his potential clearly has been unlocked by what Thibodeau has allowed him to do as well too. So hopefully he'll find a way to remain happy and keep that marriage going. But hopefully he'll be able to add something to that as well too, depending on how this all goes at the end of this year, at the end of the season. Man. But yeah, the Knicks and the Knicks fan base is always a strange case.
Yeah, and to that point too, I wonder if this playoff run, like you said, will entice free agents to finally sign for New York. Because I mean, you and I could probably think of 10 players that everybody thought, oh my gosh, the Knicks are going to throw the kitchen sink at this guy. They're getting LeBron, they're getting KD, and they always strike out. You're getting Amari Stoudemire, who you had no idea, or at least we hope they had no idea the knees were the way they were. And they just seem to always swing and miss. So I wonder if this is the season where people look at that team and see Tibbs, see the new leadership they have. Yeah, you still got Dolan there, but I mean, it is what it is. I wonder if this is going to be the spark to make somebody say, hey, you know what, I'm going to sign with New York, to elevate them, to make them a legit 4 seed. Because I'm with you. If this was a regular NBA season, would the Knicks be 4th in the East? I don't know about that. I see them more being like an 8 or a 7.
Yeah, and I don't think we're not being judgmental. We're just being realistic, and I think if the Knicks are realistic about themselves too, maybe internally, Leon Rose and such, they probably understand now, hey, we can really capitalize on a great situation here. And now how do we stay at this level? And, I, depending on what happens with the Clippers series, what they at least have to throw their name in the hat,
for sure.
They have to at least try, right?
Yeah,
and I know there's somebody you want to talk about too in that, but they have to be monitoring the situation with Damian Lillard. And I think a report came out about that earlier in the last couple of weeks. It's like, well, if he ever decides he's unhappy in Portland, the Knicks would be the first in line to try to get that done. The Celtics were enlisted in that as well too, as well as you would figure 1,000 teams would be interested in Dame if he were to decide, Portland's not it for me.
Yeah, for sure. You're right about that. We're definitely going to talk about Damian Lillard. I wanted to ask you, too, for me, I'll start this off with the most disappointing. Of course, I'm going to go with the home team, Wizards. Did I think the Washington Wizards were going to beat the Philadelphia 76ers? The fan in me said yes. The NBA watcher in me said no way. But I at least expected a game for it to be more competitive. Just the way that Joel Embiid has just dominated the three-headed monster that we have at big positions, as far as you think about Alex Len, who we knew is not an NBA All-Star by any means, but I figured he could at least make things a little bit difficult for Joel Embiid, but he's been having his way. And then Ben Simmons just looking really fantastic along with Curry. So for me, that's the most disappointing thing I've seen in the playoffs so far has been the play of the Wizards. If you had to pick a team or a player that's disappointed you the most so far, who would you go with?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to hammer the point, man. I guess it's Miami. And I live in this area, in the South Florida area, and I'm inundated with their news and stuff like that too. I happened to join in on the press conference or the last game for when they got swept with Bam Adebayo, and his body language was bad, as you would expect it to be after a loss and being swept, especially after going to the finals. But he kind of, I don't want to say he attacked, but he wasn't very kind to one of the reporters on what I thought was a fair question. You know what I mean? So that Heat team is reeling right now, really and truly. And I didn't expect them to be out swept and then to be kind of obliterated in the way they were, especially in the latter part of that series. And that was really, really surprising. And, their 3-point shooting never was really right the entire year. And yes, COVID and injuries, and they had a bunch of people in and out, 1,000,001 different starting lineups. But just to see them go out the way they did after going to the NBA Finals, like I don't know, like I don't have those stats in front of me. Like, what's the last team went to the finals and got swept in the playoffs next year? Like, I don't know. I mean, I know those LeBron teams, ended up going from the finals to the lottery. But
the ones he dragged to the finals, yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think Miami probably feels real bad about how that situation played out. And some circles were questioning Spoelstra. It's like, all right, you've gone too far.
Really, but that's crazy.
But, I think that to me is probably one of the biggest surprises of the playoffs as far as them getting swept out.
Yeah, Tyler Hero, I mean, talk about a second-year slump. I think just as a guy on the outside looking in, obviously, like you said, you live in the area. I think the fame, I think he just got caught up in it from the IG model girlfriend to the endorsements to what's this kid's name, Jack Harrow, making songs about you and videos. I think we need a lot of more. It seems to me that we need a lot of stuff off the court and not a lot of stuff on the court. So you would hope if you're a Miami Heat fan, he's locked in and focused this offseason because there's a lot of people chirping. Hopefully he comes back stronger because that was not Tyler Hero bubble NBA player we saw at all this season. I mean, I could think of a couple moments, but nowhere near the player we saw last year.
Get me started, bro. So the thing about Hero is this for me, right? Again, he got all the fame. He got a Chipotle bowl named after him down here and all kind of it's just wild stuff, right? And then me being a Celtic fan, because he touched a nerve, the fact that he dropped 30 whatever on us and one of us like, this guy, he's not this good at this point of his career, but he showed to me. So there was a lot of pressure. I think I even picked him to potentially be sixth man of the year coming off Miami's bench based on what he showed. Then he ended up starting and then just, again, was never really right. Wasn't comfortable in the starting lineup. When they moved him back to the bench, he started to play a little bit better, but he attributed to the lack of the 3-point depth and potency that this team had compared to last year. And that's unfortunate. So, when you get down to being swept and you bring back the conversation about, well, they wouldn't move him from James Harden. And I remember very distinctly going on one of these locker room chats or whatever the case would be, and the question was asked and so forth. I was like, it's Tyler Hero. Like, get that out of here. If James Harden is available,
yeah, sure.
Make the deal. Pound the deal 1,000 times out of 1,000. And it's like, well, what do you think best case scenario is for Hero? I was like, best case scenario is he's like an all-star, borderline all-star perennially. I guess that's the best case scenario. And that's obviously not bad, but it's James Harden.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
So, and again, there's conflicting reports about that. So, like, don't want to maybe go down that rabbit hole, but it's crazy in hindsight now to think about that conversation that was happening in, whatever it was, January, to now we're at the end of the season, and now people are now like, well, what the hell? That was the situation that held that deal up. What are we doing here? And Hero, he's got a lot to think about and to reevaluate to come back next year and be better. Because they also have to re-sign Duncan Robinson, and if Joe Harris got what Joe Harris got this summer,
Amen.
Duncan Robinson's going to want to get paid. And you know what I mean? So that's going to start to put some constraints I think Miami wants to do ultimately. But Hero is a big part of what they want to do, and he's supposed to be a building block. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think he might be one of the, if I had to make like a top 5 guys under the most pressure in the offseason, he definitely has to be in that top 5. Talking about pressure, sliding over to the Western Conference, you mentioned it, Damian Lillard. I'm a huge Dame fan. I like his 10 toes down. I made it from the mud, which is all true. Loyal to the soil, loyal from the soil type of mentality he has. But let's be realistic. As a guy who's been or still is a lifetime long Kevin Garnett fan, he wasted, and I'll use that word, wasted so many good quality years with those Minnesota teams. And you can go back to, well, what happened when they had Sam Cassell and Latrell Sprewell and they made the Western Conference Finals. It was a nice story, but do we really think those Minnesota teams are going to make a final? And if they did, win it? And I feel with Damian Lillard, so many times already in his career, we've seen him make the playoffs, have fantastic performances, and get eliminated, whether it be the Western Conference Finals or the second round. And Portland's done things. I can't say that Portland has not tried to make that team become better and improve. I mean, CJ McCollum is a borderline all-star, in my opinion. You add some of the guys like Covington they added to their roster. They're trying. Carmelo Anthony's been a great pickup and a great story in the NBA. But I know it's tied up right now, if Portland gets eliminated in this Denver series against the Nuggets team with Jokic, who should be the MVP in my opinion, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that too, if you want to share those as well. Do you feel like Dame Lillard needs to stick with this and see if Portland can do it again? Or if you're Damian Lillard, you're his agent, is it time to start looking outside and seeing whether options are available?
Well, I'll take the low hanging fruit first. I think Jokic is hands down MVP. No doubt. I don't care what. I mean, obviously the vote is in, so it doesn't really matter what he does in the series in some aspect. But he's been phenomenal and dragged that Denver team that doesn't play any defense until to a home court advantage in the Western Conference, which is no small feat, especially down the stretch without Jamal Murray. But with Dame, I'm like you. I liked KG a lot. And he was loyal to a fault, and he laments that point almost every chance he gets, every opportunity. He's like, I wish would have came to Boston sooner. And I don't know if Dame feels that way, but if you're asking me as an outsider, it's hard because one of the last points you said is extremely true. Portland's tried. Neil O'Shea has made every possible move. He's trying. Oh, that didn't work this year. All right, well, let's try this now and let's do this. And the fact that they consistently suffer injury after injury after injury, and have to then carry the team for long stretches of the season, and then maybe he's worn down by the time the playoffs come. Even if those guys are now back, that all weighs on it. But that's not Neil O'Shea's fault. That Nurkic continues to go down, that McCollum goes down. Like, whose fault is that? Zach Collins, that guy hasn't played like 5 minutes. So it's hard because I think Dame understands the relationship he has with the organization. The organization has been committed to trying to win. Just what they've tried hasn't worked out for a lot of and various different reasons. So I would probably stay and understand why he would, but obviously the league would be salivating, if he were to his agent to be like, hey, you know what? Let's go see what's out there. You know what I mean? It depends what how many years he got left on his deal. I know he's getting paid stupid money, like $40-50 million, right? Because he's got that
stupid money.
Yeah, the super max he has for sure. But I think a lot of people pay that. You know what I mean? He's a guy who can very easily be like 30-8, for the rest of the season. Like that's crazy. So to me, I understand why he'd stay. I probably would stay, given the fact that they have been committed to him and tried to make that roster as good as it possibly can be. And that's the other thing too. I think he's aware, right? A lot of players, they don't have that self-awareness. Like, well, bro, if you make $50 million, that only leaves this much money for us to build the team around you as well. So and again, they haven't had the greatest luck in drafts, right? So let's call a spade a spade. You know what I mean? I think Anthony Simons is cool, but
little project, if you want to be nice by saying that, I think.
Yeah, you 100% are being nice. So, I think there are ways that they can look to improve, but unless you hit a home run in free agency, with the draft, or you get somebody to come there for, a minimum, just kind of on a prove-it year, how are you going to continue to build and get big name free agents if CJ and Dame are taking up $80-90 million of your salary cap? Like, how? So, I think Dame is cognizant of that as well, too, and would prefer to bring guys in. And that's why he is a consummate team guy. You always hear stories about he's the one having guys come over to the house for dinner, organizing movies and, team building activities and things of that nature, because he understands that each member of that team has to play a part for that team to be successful, especially with him being the lead dog.
Yeah, and I don't think I've heard people talk about it on Twitter, but I don't see Portland moving CJ McCollum. And if you do move him, okay, what kind of piece are you bringing back to team up with Dame? Are you bringing a scoring wing player? Or what are you doing? Because you're losing a lot of shooting. I mean, he's great off the dribble, but CJ McCollum is also one of the better shooters in the NBA. So if you lose him, you're losing a big chunk of your three-point shooting for what? In exchange for what?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I mean, Portland's they found a way to be decent down the stretch defensively, especially when it would look like they may end up being in the playing tournament. So they kind of hunkered down and got to be, like, I think, in the top 15 towards the last part of the season. I don't know if that's where they actually finished or not. But ultimately, like I said, if you move CJ, then is it somebody who can score, but maybe is more of a spot up, a 3-and-D type guy, an elite level 3-and-D guy? I think because that's where you still want to be able to have that potent offense, but you're going to need some capable wing defenders and take some pressure off of Dame so that he's not having to guard some of the best guys out there as well too. And that's where you know, Derek Jones Jr. and stuff like that were, like, again, they're obviously not 3-and-D guys, but Derek Jones was supposed to come in here and really help defensively and kind of take some of that pressure off Covington as well too. They both struggled with the 3-point shot this year, and Jones had flashes of defensive brilliance, but nothing that's going to get him on an All-NBA team or anything like that. You know what I mean? So he does what he needs to do for that team, but they definitely need to figure out ways to get better on that side of basketball.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, like you said, one of the better players, superstars in the NBA for sure, and all the way up there in Portland. And unless you're a diehard NBA fan or obviously a Blazers fan, not a lot of people get a chance to watch a lot of the brilliance that is Damian Lillard. So, to your point, if he said, "I want out of here," oh my gosh, I think the league offices will handle whatever calls need to handle for his agent. If he's overwhelmed with calls, Adam Silver and his crew would have no problem handling some of those calls, because imagining him in somewhere like a New York or even going home kind of to a Golden State, I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there. Or Miami Heat. Every time you think the Miami Heat's not in the picture, Pat Riley is known to pull off miracles. I mean, that'd be huge for the league. So we'll have to see. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Dame Lillard. I definitely want to see him at least make a final, get an opportunity to win the championship. And I don't want to see a KG 2.0 where we're in year 13 and we've been loyal and we lead the league and we lead the team in this and we're all time of that, but we have nothing to show for it except for obviously the love of our fans.
Yeah, you're looking at, I mean, if Drew Holiday commanded 4 draft picks and pick swaps, first rounders, I mean,
yeah, good point.
Was it like 6 first rounders? You know what I mean?
Oklahoma City, OKC line 1, OKC.
Well, for real, yeah, and New Orleans, they have a bunch of picks as well too. So I think OKC was like, hey, we'll try to pair you up with Shea, SGA, and see what happens there. They have to do a lot more than that, but anyway, we'll see. Portland's situation is going to be an interesting one to watch, but I think he's just so focused as and grounded as a human being.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. I don't think I'll say he doesn't care, but doing it the way that others we're seeing do it right now, chase rings, that's not for him.
Yeah, he's not built that way. He's not built that way at all. Definitely, you can tell.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, the last question I had for you today, too, is the NBA has changed a lot, obviously. You and I both in the same age bracket, grew up in those 90s Knicks, throw it in the paint. The big man was the key. 3-point shots are kind of a luxury, whereas now the league is more wide open, obviously, free-flowing offenses. We're going positionless, all kinds of crazy things. I'd say if somebody to ask you what's one thing you hate about the league right now in this current state, and what's one thing you love about the league in its current state, what would you say those are?
The thing I don't want to use hate, such a strong word.
Or dislike.
Strongly dislike.
Yeah, there you go.
I strongly dislike, and this is the old man get off my lawn type of thing, this iteration of super teams, I guess. This Brooklyn situation, while I fully believe in player empowerment and the right to do it. And if you and I were homeboys and, whatever the case would be, and have to play together and we were elite, why would we not? I get it. But I don't know. I don't love it. I don't love that. But I think my actual answer is something that we actually stumbled upon in one of our hot mic chats on the baseline. We were covering the game, and one of our listeners was we were talking, I can't remember which team we were talking about, but we were basically talking about the value of coaching. And I honestly think, when you ask me this question, it's like, you know what? I think that's the thing I dislike. I think the value of coaching might be dissipating some or a lot in the NBA, and we're not necessarily recognizing it in some ways, especially with a team like do you really think Steve Nash is doing any coaching on that Brooklyn sideline right now?
Nope, I don't.
So
try to stay out the way.
Yeah, and again, it's a catch-22. So let me say this: you and I both in our real lives, if you will, we're managers and we work with people, and I think one of the greatest things you have to do when you are a leader or a manager is also knowing when to get out the way and let people be great. And sometimes that is a skill in itself, to not to overdo it and to always want to impart your influence. Sometimes they got it, but I think my holistic view on it is that they just don't value their coaches. I think these players do anymore, and that's why coaches are always the first one to go and the last one to get praised when a team is successful. And to me, that's something that I wish could change. And maybe not a lot of people are going to think that, and would agree with me on that. But that's actually my answer. I really do think coaching, the perceived value of coaching is changing and dissipating within our league. And that to me is frustrating because I know what coaching has done for me in my limited basketball time. I wouldn't say career, but what it was, at least I know what the concept of it's supposed to be at that as well too. And like that's important. But I don't want to sound hypocritical because I gave Bud a whole bunch of credit on changing his coaching style, and now the Bucks look better because he is changing that. But it takes the players the ability to accept that. Players have to want to be coached. And not all players are that too. So maybe that's the better answer. You know what I mean? Players accepting coaching is something that I think I struggle with in today's NBA.
And what about something that you love right now about today's current league?
So you know me, right? We hung out, we haven't done All-Star like that. It's like I just love the business aspect of the league and the partnerships and the overall globalization of the NBA. I think is because that warms me. And as somebody who definitely believes in diversity and giving everybody an opportunity and a chance, seeing stars come into our league like Luka and so forth, who come in here and just are taking the league by storm is great. And I get, the emails in the beginning of the league, oh, and this year we have, 400 X amount of players and 127 of those are international players and so forth. And when they do the All-Star, like they do all that representation, the Basketball Africa League just finished up, this past weekend as well. I'm a West Indian.
That's wild to me.
It is wild, right? And and it's a year delayed because of the pandemic as well too. So it should have happened last year. I'm looking for them to do more in the Caribbean. I'm a West Indian dude, by blood. So I'd love to see them, somewhere in the islands doing something and trying to develop talent over there. I think all those things are coming. So to me, the overall globalization, they're talking about expansion. Obviously, we know that's, kind of more or less big in Seattle if they do that here. Yeah. But if they are able to figure out a way to do any type of expansion, into even Central America and Mexico and stuff like that too, like that'd be dope. I mean, like that would just be dope. That would be. And I think that's, to me, I think Adam Silver and what off the back of David Stern, the league is going in the right direction when it comes to the overall globalization of its product. And I don't know, with the exception of soccer, if there is a more global recognized sport, even the NFL. Like I don't follow it as closely, but I don't know how many true international players are playing in the NFL when we know there's more than a ton and a handful in the NBA.
Yeah, not too many in the NFL. There's probably less than 30. I just think off the top of my head. I know for myself, something that I strongly dislike about the NBA in its current stage is the crying after every call from the players. And I know that Bird did it, Magic did it, and I watched the NBA back then. I still do now, but unless I'm just getting old, which is apparently I am, it just seems to be happening a whole lot more often now than it did back then. It just slows the game down. It's unappealing to me as a viewer. I mean, I'm a LeBron James stan. I'll tell anybody that. And to watch him yesterday on the one particular play before Jay Crowder hit that corner three, to stand there and cry about the call and point to his arm when he was fouled and walk back on defense. Like, come on, man. Luka Doncic, you think Luka's a great player, but the time we spend crying and complaining, and I understand some of it's gamesmanship. Hey, if I let this referee know that this guy's grabbing on me in the first quarter, maybe I'll get the call in the third or the fourth. Yeah. But every single time you shoot the ball to say that you're getting fouled, like, come on, man. Number one, the referees can't be that bad, and the defenders in the NBA cannot be that bad where every single time you have the ball, you're getting fouled. It just slows the game down and mucks it up. Just something I strongly do not like about today's current NBA is the whining and crying from the players after every single play, it feels like.
Yeah, it's frustrating to watch, and Luka is already an all-time crier.
For sure.
So the crying, the flopping, there's just a lot of, like you said, gamesmanship and just acting, in today's game too, and it is not easily digestible. Especially if you're used to watching a certain brand or grew up on a certain brand of basketball, and I hope that these guys understand that that's not the best way to kind of be perceived and to kind of go about it. But if they continually get calls and the referees do eventually acquiesce, how is it going to stop? Again, we're from the days of like, well, the coach would do the bitching and moaning for you.
Exactly.
They'd gladly go take a fine. They'd say something in the presser that was off-putting or to get them in trouble. And there's still some of that today.
Yep, there is.
But right now it's like the players are like, hey, you know what, player power. We'll take care of it out here, and this is how we're going to do it by whining and crying and flopping all over the place. I think I saw a play the other night. It was so wild. Like in the Celtics, the game they won in Game 3, Smart was upset about the way something was called, and they ended up they're stopping on the defensive possession. So he ended up like flexing to the crowd, but the ball wasn't actually secured. Like he looked and felt like his teammate was about to get the rebound, so he just assumed the teammate would get the rebound. So he starts flexing at the crowd, and they're running the other way. I'm like, bro, like this is not the time.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Like to be boisterous and and overexpressing yourself. The game is still going on. Like I get when you're hyped after during a timeout and they want to flex to the crowd and all that, but we were in the middle of live gameplay and the ball was not secure. So all the antics that these players continually do and display on a regular basis, like it is frustrating to watch, especially for me as watching the Celtics. Like, hey, I'm always in that game specifically. I don't care what the score was. I was like,
till it's triple zeros.
Yeah,
till it's triple zeros. Yeah, lock in, man, for sure.
So, for sure. But yeah, great point, bro. Great point.
Like that LeBron play was crazy to me. Like he literally just stood there for like 2 minutes. Crowder wide open in the corner. I wonder why. It's 5-on-4. He crosses half court, shoulders slumped. You should be shoulder slumped. You're supposed to be the leader in this all-time great. And like I said, once in a while I understand, but every single play it just drags on me. And I mean, something that I really like about the NBA, I'm kind of same along lines as you, is the way that the NBA is almost bigger than just the game. I'm here for it. I'm here for the sneakers. I'm here for the runway type entrances as far as the fashion goes. It's just more topics and more discussions that you can have about the players, about the game. And I'm also a really big fan of how diverse the NBA is. When you take a look at some of the social media teams, I'd venture to say almost all of them are headed up by women, women of color, Asian women. So you just see a lot more diversity in the NBA than I see in other leagues. I mean, the NFL slowly getting there. MLB is getting there. The NHL, I think, is still stuck in the 90s in that aspect. But with the NBA, I just see a lot more opportunities for people who look like us or don't look like us as well to get opportunities to do whatever it is they do, whether it's create memes, whether it is to run a social media account or talk about fashion. And it also gives the players a chance to express themselves as well. And I think the NBA does that a lot better than some of the other professional leagues. I think about MLB. If MLB would just showcase their players, they'd have so much more fans, but they're so stuck on the tradition of the team. And while they have great guys like a Fernando Tatis Jr., they won't broadcast that person. They won't build him up. They'll show you highlights every once in a while, but they don't capitalize on how great that player is. Whereas the NBA, I think, does a fantastic job of that. So that's something I really enjoy about the league currently.
Yeah, I like what you said there for sure. I mean, I think about baseball back in the day. The reason like Ken Griffey and Frank Thomas and guys like that were easily marketable for MLB's palette, so to speak, is because, hey, they were very clean cut. You know what I mean? It didn't have a whole lot of flair. Their flair was just on the diamond, so to speak. But you see a guy like Tatis, you know what I mean? He's got, braids, dreadlocks, whatever those things are.
I'm not quite sure still what that is.
We got color in his hair and things of that nature. And it's like, it's not easily digestible for what the nation's pastime, if you will, is used to.
Yeah.
So I think you just have to embrace diversity. You have to embrace the change, and as you alluded to, the NBA's done a great job of that as well. Even if you or I wouldn't wear something Russell Westbrook or Kelly Oubre would wear.
Yeah, I'm not built for that.
Wait, did you see Timberland on the Versus last night?
Oh yeah, I did.
So Tim is as old as us.
He needs to get a towel and a water sponsor ASAP after last night, bro.
it's wild, but I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, if you can embrace that kind of that youthfulness and that exuberance, and you're not running and shying away from it, you're going to continue to evolve as a product and as a brand. And so old heads like us with the right mindset of understanding, hey, things do need to change. Certain things can change and it'd be okay. And then the younger generation is like, they go like, now really we say, look like, no, they look like me. That's some ish I would wear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like that stuff is important, that the league is not shying away from that as well too. And especially what they're trying to do slowly but surely, for the WNBA as well too. All of this matters. It all matters, and I think that's when I look at this product as a whole and as a pie, if you will. That does give me a lot of excitement, and I think again we're speaking the same language when it comes to the globalization, the brand activation, and just the recognizability of the league on a global scale. 100%, they're doing a great job.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, I can't really think of any other league in professional sports in America that's doing it. I mean, to your point, like you said, soccer, of course, but I think the NBA is right there along with them. But now we get to my favorite part of the show, which is the three-piece. This is 3 rapid-fire questions for our viewers to get a chance to know a little bit more about Warren Shaw. He has no idea what these questions are going to be. I still want to keep it fun and keep it lighthearted.
You hit me with the Birdman rub of the hands, man. Gotta watch out.
In the post-production, I'm out there trying to see if I can get that meme and put that in there. How good are my editing skills? We were talking about before we started doing the show, people working on things during the pandemic. I've been working on my editing a little bit, so we'll see if I can get that Birdman in there. That's a good idea you just gave me. Now, first question we're going to ask you, Mr. Shaw. Day off, you can do whatever you want to do. Catch a game, go out and fish. I don't know, hang out with family. It's a day. You get a full 24 hours to yourself. What's Warren Shaw doing and why?
All right, so I'm gonna spend some time with the family. Watching the Knicks room. She'd probably kill me if I didn't say that, but I mean it.
Good answer.
Yeah. We would do something, but we're big on movies and shows, so maybe we watch a couple of shows and things of that nature. I would probably then all right, cool, check, go in my office, play something on my Xbox or PlayStation, you know what I mean, whatever that is, or something. What I would do, shoot 'em up or NBA 2K, maybe do that for a little bit as well. And then probably head out and, actually go shoot some hoops as well too. And then maybe closing the night off or the day off, just out with some friends, in a lounge. Kind of too old to be at the club right now. Wearing those Westbrook outfits as we alluded to. So, so maybe just a t-shirt and some jeans and like a little lounge somewhere and just vibing and talking ish, whether that be about sports, old times, or like that with some of my peoples, man. But really kind of doing it in both ways, having some connectivity with the people that mean the most to me, but also spending a little like solo dolo time too, so I can just
yeah. Nah, respect that. Now, this next question, you can hopefully you don't answer it in 2 seconds. Hopefully you got at least one person. I know that you and I are 90s hip hop fans. Is there one current rapper that you don't hate? Just one guy, and I hope to God, Warren, it's not anyone with little in their name. Is there anybody who's out right now that you can tolerate? Your stepkids push play, and you don't want to throw them out the car. You can tolerate. They're not on the Wu-Tang level, but you can tolerate them. Current rappers.
Wow, that's a great question. So I guess it depends. What do we consider J. Cole, right? So if I can go with that, then that's the safest answer. But I'm not with any of the babies. I'm not with any of the Lils or whatever like that too. And there's no knock on them and their music and what they do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's just not for me. What am I? It's not made for me, and I understand that. So but it's great to be in this position now where we can actually compare variations and iterations of hip hop. When we were growing up, hip hop was like, what the F is this? Our parents were like, what are you listening to? They want you listening to the Shy Lights or something.
Yeah. This ain't the OJs.
So it's trippy to kind of be in that position now where we have hip hop babies, and again, there's generations of hip hop that we can compare. So, but my kids, like they have a healthy appreciation for J. Cole. They don't necessarily care for Kendrick too much. But if I could say something that can get everybody on the right page in the household and family, then I definitely don't hate. I actually like, and it would have to be J. Cole. But I can't say any of the Littles or even Future and people like that. It's just not for me.
Yeah, I've tried, especially like you said, we're both managers, work with people, and my staff's a younger staff, and I try, but a lot of times I'm like, I'm gonna go up front. Y'all go ahead. I can't.
You can have it.
If I hear one more auto tune or one more before I can't. There's no. Where's the wordplay? Where is DJ Premier when you need him to save the day? I'm like, yeah, y'all got this. I'm gonna go up front and I'm gonna do what I do, and y'all do what y'all do back here. Now, as somebody who's a lifelong NBA fan, favorite all-time NBA moment and why?
So that's a really hard question. The first thing that comes to mind is, ironically, I think Jordan's reverse up and under thing in the finals in Game 1 versus the Lakers. It's just as a kid at that time, that move was just ridiculous to me. And it's just something that you see it now, and it's still impressive, but there's people with that same level of athleticism or better, even now doing stuff in games. But to me, when I think about Mike and stuff like that too, and then Marv Albert's call a spectacular move. that whole aura, and the fact that it was the first time that they're able to get a chip for them, like that to me was amazing, and it's something that always sticks out to me as well too. I also remember like a lot of heartbreak. I really like the Sacramento Kings and Robert Horry's 3. That was the guttiest of gut punches I've ever had to receive. I was hurt on my bed, like why? I've always kind of been a Laker hater, so to see that was like that hurt a lot. So, but I think in terms of like the play that sticks out to me when I think NBA basketball, one of the first things that comes to mind is actually that Jordan play, because it just brought me back to a special moment in my life. I remember my grandmother was alive at the time, watching the game with me and everything like that as well too.
Very cool.
Even for what she saw, like the excitement in my face. Did you see what he just did? It was dope.
That's what's up. That's what's up, man. That's good. That's a good answer. My favorite NBA moment of all time would probably be, I shouldn't have been awake, but I was. That Golden State Seattle Supersonics game when Sean Kemp just put on a show all over Chris Gatling. Oh my gosh, I had no business being awake, but I just never seen somebody yam on people like that and let them know about it, man. I was like, those 10:30 tip-offs were not good for me when at school the next day, but I did not care. I was a low-key closet Seattle Supersonics fan for sure. Him and Gary Payton were a great dynamic duo, so I'd say that's probably one of my favorite moments in a non-NBA moment. Because KG was involved, kind of, because who else would you want besides you talking trash than KG, is the Vince Carter dunk over the 7-footer in the Olympics. Ooh. Which is just ridiculous, dude. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
I would never forget that moment at all.
I'm mad I didn't catch it live.
I did.
I was in New York at the time, so I was just I was like out in the city doing whatever, and came back. I was like, what happened? You know what I mean? just like crazy highlight, bro. So yeah, that's a great pick too, man.
Yeah, no, that's a moment I will never forget for sure. That Vince Carter, just uber athletic. And I remember that was like an off season where people were talking about him not being a really good player. So he was all angry and did the same thing that D Wade did when D Wade shaved his head off. Vince let it get a fro.
Vince get the fro, right? Yeah.
Because I think that was after the season when he lost in the playoffs to Philadelphia. So like, you shouldn't have gone to school and graduated. That's why you lost to the 76ers. So he was all mad. And I'm gonna show everybody what a tough guy I am. And he took it out on the rim and on a 7-footer from France. Had to give him the business, man. That's my favorite non-NBA basketball moment. Well, hey Warren, really appreciate you hopping on, man. I never let anybody come on the show without giving them the floor and giving them the opportunity to let everybody know where they can follow you, find your work. So at this time, sir, the floor is yours.
Oh, as always, man, I appreciate it. It's nothing but love. Here, this is definitely family. So excited that you allowed me to be on your platform and be one of your first guests, or their first guest.
Yes,
one way or the other, man. Again, that's love. You know what I mean? And definitely that will always be there. For me, you can follow me on Twitter at ShawSportsNBA. Follow our show at NBA Baseline. Follow my great and dynamic co-host, Cal Lee, at GameFaceLee, all common spelling. And hey, and chop it up with us anytime. We're always here. We're talking about everything in the NBA, with everything basketball, really. Like, we're not even just limited to that. Talk business, everything. So yeah, follow us, bro, and get at us. We're here with you. But make sure you're sticking with my man here. On 3 with Joe. New thing popping off, man. Give this guy all the love and support he deserves, man. Give his flowers while he's here to get them, bro. Appreciate you.
Really appreciate that, man. Yeah, it's funny. I was just starting to get into the whole social media game. I opened up a Twitter account, started Nuts and Bolts, and I saw the logo, and I was like, NBA Baseline. Logo's kind of fresh, man. Kind of dope. So I saw it was a podcast. I was like, I didn't even know what a podcast was. I hit play, and I'm not even lying. I even gassing you. Opening chords of the intro. Oh, these brothers is hip hop heads like me. All right, man. Listen to the first episode, and I was like, "How do you keep listening to it? What's the subscribe button?" I clicked the subscribe button, and it's been a wrap. That's a true story. The logo caught my attention. The beat kept me interested, and then y'all's knowledge of the NBA. I've just been a fan, and I've been a friend of y'all's ever since, man.
That's love, bro. Appreciate that. And again, the feeling is more than mutual, and the respect is there. And we will always have you, and you always have a space on our platforms as well. And we got something cooking up in the kitchen for all the fans and listeners out there that we're all working on collaboratively. So can't wait till that drops next month. But keep it
absolutely. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Warren Shaw. And I want to thank you all for tuning into the premiere episode of Just 3 with Joe. I also want to say thank you to Warren Shaw for being my guest this week. Like I said, super excited to get this adventure started and even more excited to have you along with me. Make sure you subscribe to the Nuts and Bolts Sports YouTube channel. I will be back next week. We'll have new episodes dropping weekly. I am Joe Cardoso. You guys have a great Memorial Day, and I'll catch you guys next week. Peace.